Anybody who has comments that they would like to make, that they would hold off until the end, and we will take them up. I have the chat window open, so I'll do my best to follow questions that come up in the chat, and otherwise ask people to raise their hand. And I can see the screen and I'll do my best to identify you, but apologies in advance if I miss any hands right away. But with that, let me just welcome you again and thank all of you for being here. We are going to start with, if I may now turn things over to Mikko Olakainen, who's the head of the fund and the secretariat, to share a few remarks on the big picture, as I like to call it. And thank you, Mikko. I know you're traveling, and thank you for joining while on mission. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants, and also a warm welcome from me. I'm here actually traveling in Europe and taking this meeting in a phone booth, so I hope the internet connection and everything else works well. But I'd like to start, like Rob mentioned, on the big picture in which the Adaptation Fund operates. The picture has changed somewhat in the last half a year, and to explain the outcomes of the 44th meeting of the board, it's perhaps useful to say a few things about that. The Adaptation Fund is currently implementing its second medium-term strategy from 2023 to 2027. That work continues to grow. As we know, the risks brought by climate change are increasing. We are expecting that this year, 2025, is once again going to be the hottest year on record, hotter than last year. And the needs are really increasing for adaptation finance, expressed both by research, such as the UNEP Adaptation Gap Report from late last year, and by developing countries themselves. This has brought increased expectation on the Adaptation Fund and for the board of the fund and us at the Secretariat to provide more support. The grant portfolio that's under management continues to grow as new projects and programs are approved and as new grant types are developed and rolled out, with commensurate additional work to update our policies and increase our monitoring support. Also, a demand for access to resources, including reviewing accreditation applications and re-accreditation applications from different types of implementing entities, including national, regional, and multilateral ones. That work has increased along with the increased demand for capacity building support through the fund's readiness program. As many of you will also be aware, at the last meeting of the last COP, at the last meeting of the CMA in Baku, in Azerbaijan in November, the CMA considered the new funding goal for climate finance that goes by the name of a new collective quantified goal on climate finance, or NCQG. And in that decision, the parties decided that a significant increase of public resources should be provided through the operating entities of the financial mechanism of the convention, the Adaptation Fund, the Least Developed Countries Fund, the Special Climate Change Fund. And the parties also decided to pursue efforts to at least triple annual outflows from these funds from 2022 levels by 2030 at the latest. So to triple in the next 5 years, that's quite a significant goal for us. But of course, we are responding to that request by the parties. That decision in itself speaks to the mandate from the parties that the Adaptation Fund has and that continues to grow. Also, the board has asked us to work on further understanding what this request by the CMA means for the adaptation fund and what it is specifically that we need to do in order to be able to deliver over the next 5 years. All of the work of the fund and of us at the Secretariat and forward-looking thinking sits within an evolving geopolitical landscape and context of climate finance. Despite some uncertainty in our external environment and the limited available contributor resources and the competing goals for those resources, the Adaptation Fund is in a solid position to meet the country's demand and will begin to work in response to the board's request regarding the NCQG decision. And we will report to the board in the board's next meeting in October on that. So the board, apart from that big picture, the board had in front of itself at the 44th meeting an agenda that responded to prior work and prior decisions done by the board and also reflected these wider trends that I have just mentioned. The topics of focus at today's and tomorrow's post-board webinar series cover these important issues, and like Rob mentioned, we are also happy to take your questions. So the board continued to build a strong portfolio of grants in the Adaptation Fund portfolio. The board approved 16 fully developed project proposals, totaling $137 million worth of funding, which is the record amount in any single board meeting so far. The board also endorsed 15 project concepts and pre-concepts, which means that the pipeline of project proposals continues to grow. Also, the board approved more than $1 million worth of project formulation grants, and we now remember that the project formulation grants, their size has been increased recently, so we see more demand for those grants. The board also approved funding for 9 countries who will receive Adaptation Fund grants for the first time. The board also made some key decisions regarding other areas of the fund's work, including doubling the so-called country cap, the maximum amount that the countries can access from the Adaptation Fund for single country projects. It used to be 20 million, now it's 40 million. The board more than doubled the maximum size of individual projects or programs from 10 million to 25 million, again for single country projects. And the board also increased the maximum size of regional multi-country projects from 14 to 30 million US dollars. So there was a clear show of ambition by the board in order to meet the increasing needs that countries have. The board also decided on a new annual resource mobilization target, which means that even though the macroeconomic financial situation is challenging, the board did not lower its ambition from the previous years, which is also a good sign. The board also updated policy for project and program implementation delays and approved amendments to the project legal agreement. These are areas that are very important, I know, for our existing implementing entities, the ones that are implementing projects. And in many areas, things were made simpler and easier in that respect.
No. Il faut chercher le globe.
May I just ask everyone to mute their microphones if possible, please? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, sorry, I'm still hearing some. Go. There we go. Thank you. So the board dedicated significant time to the key topic this year, which is the adaptation fund's full transition from serving both the Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement to only serving the Paris Agreement. But the board was not able to discuss many of the other policy items, such as the updates to the fund's environmental and social policy, or hear an update on progress to develop a policy on protection against sexual abuse, exploitation, and harassment, or discuss the updates to the strategic results framework. So the work on those areas will continue before the next board meeting and at the next board meeting. So you will hear more about these and other decisions in the rest of the session today. And like Rob mentioned, the session tomorrow is particularly looking into the project-related changes. So the new implications of the new country caps and project caps and so forth. With this, I'd like to thank you for joining today's post-board webinar, and I will turn it back to Rob and colleagues from here. So thank you so much.
Thank you also, Mikko, for joining while on mission and in transit, no less. We appreciate it, and thank you also for providing this big picture context to not just the board meeting that recently occurred, but also our work in general. So thank you for all of that. From here, I'd like to turn to the next item on our agenda, which is an overview of accreditation decisions, and would like to invite Nisa and Sylvia to make a very brief presentation. I'd also like to ask Sophie if you're able to project slides. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Morning, good evening, everyone. Just wait a couple of moments. The slides will be uploaded. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you and see you. Thanks very much.
Well, in the meantime, I can quickly introduce myself. My name is Nisa Huja. I'm the Accreditation Officer with the Fund Secretariat, and I work under the Countries and Partnership Unit, which is led by Silvia Mancini. Yep, I see it. So we make it full screen, or I can start anyway. So at the 44th meeting of the Adaptation Fund Board, we had 4 key decisions that were taken in relation to accreditation. And 3 of them were accreditation of new and old entities, re-accreditation and accreditation, and 1 was related to more of the process review and analysis. Could we move to next slide, please? Sure if I have control over it. Sophie, is it possible to move to next slide, please? I can also share the screen from my end and presentation if that is more helpful. Well, I can continue to share, and then we'll have the slide decks probably shared with other people. So yeah, the first decision that was taken, which is relevant to all the entities that will be going through reaccreditation, is in-depth analysis of reaccreditation process of the fund. The Secretariat conducted a preliminary assessment based on the workload of applications as well as time being taken, in addition to the Adaptation Fund TURG assessment, thematic assessment of evaluation of our work. And based on that, we realized since the past decision had increased each country to nominate 2 national implementing entities, and the interest based on the cap, increase of the country cap, the workload has been increasing, and we wanted to make more our reaccreditation process a little more efficient and faster. In addition, many of you probably are aware that GCF is also undergoing a revamp and revision of their reaccreditation process, and we do have certain fast track modality that are linked to their processes. So the Secretariat and the accreditation panel proposed to the board, and the board came up with the decision that, having considered the recommendation of the accreditation panel, they've requested the Secretariat to initiate work to conduct an in-depth analysis of the reaccreditation approach with a view to assess long-term operational and budgetary implications, and to present the outcomes of this analysis to the accreditation panel at the 44th meeting. And we hope to also, after the inputs of the panel, share the final outcomes of this in-depth analysis and present it for the next board meeting. The next decision that was taken was accreditation of second NIE from Kenya, which is National Environment Trust Fund, Net Fund of Kenya, and they are now the second accredited entity from Kenya. Following that, the board also reaccredited a PACT, Protected Area Conservation Trust of Belize, as the national implementing entity of Adaptation Fund. This is their second reaccreditation. And followed up with that, the board also reaccredited FERCA, which is Interprofessional Fund for Agriculture Research and Advice of Côte d'Ivoire, as the national implementing entity of the Adaptation Fund. These were the 4 key decisions that were taken. I will be available to answer if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Over to you, Rob.
Great, thank you, Nisa, and thank you also, Sylvia, for joining. I know you are also on mission and also in transit, so thank you also. I just want to appreciate that and acknowledge your extra effort to come in, so thank you so much. I don't know if you want to add any words. If everything's good, I can move on to the next agenda item, but just want to say welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you all. Not unless there are any questions, and just to present myself very quickly, I'm Silvia Mancini. I'm the Country and Partnership Unit team lead, and so I just want to also say thank you to Nisa for the very clear presentation. If there are any questions, we can address them.
Super. Thank you very much. We'll take questions near the end, and we'll move down through the agenda items. So thank you both, Nisa and Sylvia, for your presentation. If I could turn to Young now to provide an update on the decision related to the legal agreement. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Rob. Can you hear? Hope everyone can hear me well. So somehow that I cannot see the slides on. Can you see the presentation slide?
No, not yet. If we could have the slides back up, please, that would be great.
So can you upload the slide on the legal agreement?
Perhaps, Young, while we're waiting, you could introduce yourself and
Sure,
maybe
absolutely.
just start with some brief remarks. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening. I'm Young Hee Lee, governance specialist working in governance and operations team led by Rob. And this presentation is to provide an overview of the key amendments to the Adaptation Fund Standard Project Legal Agreement approved by the board at its 44th meeting. So now I see that the presentation is on the screen. If you can click enlarge the slide. So let me see. Next slide, please. Can everyone see the slide? Just want to make sure. Sophie, can you click the slide? So while the slide is being uploaded, maybe I could provide some background. So the Adaptation Fund Project Legal Agreement and Adaptation Fund policies and requirements, as you know, they embody the board's efforts to fulfill the board's fiduciary responsibilities to manage the Adaptation Fund resources. And in the Adaptation Fund, legal agreement is signed between the implementing entity and the board for each project fund approved by the board. And since first approved by the board in 2010, the Adaptation Fund project legal agreement template has been uniformly applied to all the implementing entities, and the board has reaffirmed that the text is not open to different readings or interpretation or negotiations to accommodate individual implementing entities' requests for an exception exclusively for an individual implementing entity. So in our experience, this approach has enabled the fund to expedite the signing process of project legal agreement with implementing entity and also prompt funding disbursement after the board's approval of funding. However, in recent years, some UN agencies have requested to amend the legal agreement regarding Section 3 and Section 7 because of their internal rules and policies which make them difficult to comply with these sections, namely direct application of adaptation fund policies and independent final audit requirements at the project closure, because that goes against the UN single audit principle. Accordingly, the board considered these concerns from its 40th meeting to 44th meeting and decided to allow a multilateral implementing entity to apply their own policies and procedure, which should enable them to comply with the adaptation fund policies and to allow them to submit certified financial statements instead of independent final audit statement at the project closure. So as shown in slide at the recent board meeting, the board approved the amendments to the Fund Standard Project Legal Agreement, and also requested the Secretariat to update other funding agreement templates in alignment with the approved amendments to the Standard Project Legal Agreement. So I wanted to highlight that these amendments apply to multilateral implementing entities only, and therefore there are no changes for national implementing entities and regional implementing entities regarding the Section 3 and Section 7. As of today, the amended legal agreement templates for single country and regional projects, as well as AFCIA legal agreement templates, are posted on the Adaptation Fund website. For other funding agreements, the Secretariat is in the process of updating them and will post them when the updates are completed. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sophie, can you click the next slide? So maybe I could briefly explain about the key changes while Sophie can solve any IT glitches. So regarding the section, the key amendments, first of all, Section 403 of the legal agreement is updated to be aligned with the updated policy on post-approval project change request, which was approved by the board at the recent meeting. This update applies to all the implementing entities, and the essence is that implementing entity must submit a request for any change in the original project budget allocations for approval before implementing any such change. For the details, I'd like to highly encourage you to refer the policy on project post-approval request for changes, which is also available on our website. So regarding Section 3, which is about the compliance with the adaptation funds, policies, and requirements, again, there's no change in Section 3 for regional implementing entity and national implementing entities. However, under amended Section 3, multilateral implementing entity is allowed to use its own policies to comply with the Adaptation Fund policies and requirements, ensuring their policies are aligned with the Adaptation Fund policies. It is important to understand that this does not mean that multilateral implementing entity can apply its own policies disregarding the Adaptation Fund policies and requirements. Funds, policies, and requirements set out by the board member, set out by the Adaptation Fund board must be complied in implementing Adaptation Fund projects and managing Adaptation Fund grants. Following the board's decision, so provisions are included also to mitigate any potential fiduciary risk, such as representation of the alignment with Adaptation Fund policies. Next slide, please. So the next slide, it shows an overview of the Section 7. Section 7 sets out the implementing entity's project report and financial report requirements. And again, there's no change for regional implementing entity and national implementing entity. And the amended Section 7 applies only to multilateral implementing entities. So the changes are, while multilateral implementing entity is allowed to submit certified financial statements after project closure as an alternative to final financial independence statements, multilateral implementing entity needs to submit annual certified financial report as well. So this annual certified financial report can be submitted in multilateral implementing entities standard reporting format. However, that must be certified by the controllership or CFO or an authorized financial officer of multilateral implementing entity. And the required financial information is outlined in the amended Section 7. And this is not a new information, but has been reported already as part of annual project performance report. But we are requesting this information is submitted with a certified to be certified and submitted to the adaptation fund. For the final certified financial statements after the project closure, that multilateral implementing entities can also submit these in standard reporting format. And however, that must be certified by controllership, CFO, or the most senior financial officer of the multilateral implementing entity. And the required minimum financial information is also outlined in Section 7. So I would encourage you to refer to the amended project legal agreement posted on our website. So let me stop there, and you might have some questions, and as Rob recommended, I'll be happy to answer any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Young, for that presentation, and apologies to everyone. The IT issue is that the slides, when they go up, are freezing a bit, and which is why you see them coming down and coming back up in an attempt to reshare and unstick them. So apologies to everyone for that. Let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is revisions to the policy for project and program implementation delays. And let me invite Martina, please, to give a brief presentation on the decisions related to that item. Thank you. Martina, I'm not sure. Martina, are you online? Okay, well, I see Martina needs 3 minutes. Martina, while you are organizing yourself, if I could ask that you would be ready to share your slides from your side, please, just to see if we can work around what's the freezing issue on the laptop that's being used for projecting slides. While Martina is coming, perhaps we could go to brief updates on the work on the environmental social policy and the SEA policy, just providing brief updates as you'll recall. And so Young, maybe I could invite you to come back in and speak briefly to those while Martina comes in. Give her a few minutes for that. You'll recall that the board had it on the agenda, was not able to address it. So as Miko said, we'll continue to work on those items. The board will continue to work on those items between now and also the upcoming meeting.
Sure.
Thank you, Young.
Sure. So I shared the screen from my end and projecting the slide. If you can confirm that you can see the slide.
Yeah, super. Thanks, Young.
Okay,
We can see it.
wonderful. So thank you, Rob. So this is to provide an overview and on the brief status, brief update on the status of the work relating to Adaptation Fund, environmental and social policy, and also development of SEA policy. So starting with the Adaptation Fund, environmental and social policy, as you may recall that this the work is mandated by the governing body, the CMP, requested the board to review and update environmental and social safeguard policy of the Adaptation Fund as needed. So at 40th meeting, the board commissioned an independent review of the environmental and social policy of the Adaptation Fund with a view to updating the ESB. And at the 41st meeting, the independent review of the Adaptation Fund's environmental social policy was submitted to the board for consideration. And as well as we conducted a stakeholder survey on the Adaptation Fund's environmental and social policy. And the board considered both of them and decided to continue considering that matter at the next meeting. So at the 42nd meeting, the board considered two approaches in updating environmental and social policy. First one is a fit for purpose approach, and the second one was a checklist approach. And the board decided to taking a fit for purpose approach, considering the board's unique operational framework and financial modality as well. Therefore, that the board mandated the Secretariat to prepare an updated environmental and social policy in consultation with the relevant stakeholders. So the Secretariat prepared the draft of the updated environmental and social policy, which was developed upon the independent expert assessment on the environmental and social policy of the Adaptation Fund. And we went through a thorough internal review process to ensure that these are aligned with the fund's operational framework and any other relevant policies, and also the project and funding modalities. We also launched a stakeholder consultation in February 2025, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank again implementing entities which have provided valuable inputs in this process. Therefore, that the Secretariat submitted
Ainsi, le secrétariat a soumis.
Interpreter, I can hear your voice here. French interpreter, I was able to hear your voice, just to let you know. So at the recent board meeting, the draft of the updated environmental and social policy, as well as the stakeholder consultations
Sorry for this, the interpreter wrong channel. I think you can go ahead.
Sure, thank you so much, Sophie. So at the were submitted, however, due to the time constraint, the board was not able to.
We can hear you.
You cannot hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Young. We can hear you in the room.
Okay, thank you. So at the recent board meeting, this matter was not be able to considered by the board. However, under the rules of procedure, this agenda item is automatically deferred to the next board meeting, and this will be considered at the next board meeting. So moving on to the policy on safeguarding against sexual exploitation and abuse and sexual harassment of the Adaptation Fund. And again, this work is mandated by the Adaptation Fund's governing bodies, which are the CMP and CMA. As you see in the slide, the CMP and CMA both requested the board to adopt a policy on safeguarding against sexual exploitation and abuse and sexual harassment. So at 40th meeting, the board decided to request Secretariat to prepare a document with options for a policy on SEA and present to the next board meeting. At the at the 41st meeting, the board considered this matter, but decided to continue its considerations of options for responding to this mandate at the next meeting. And at the 42nd meeting, the board considered the document which Secretariat prepared outlining the common definitions of SEA and their applications and options to respond to the mandate to develop Adaptation Fund SEA policy. The board decided to develop Adaptation Fund's policy on safeguarding against the SEA in consultation with relevant stakeholders of the Adaptation Fund. So to provide an update on the status of the work, so SEA expert consultant was hired, and it has developed a draft policy on SEA with the support from the Secretariat. And this draft is built upon prior work that studied SEA policies and frameworks of many international organizations. And per the board's direction, the Secretariat will hold consultations with the stakeholders to solicit their feedback to inform the policy development, which will be considered and reflected in finalizing the draft of SEA policy. So we are expecting that this draft of SEA policy will be circulated to implementing entities this summer. So please stay tuned, and we look forward to receiving your valuable inputs in this process. And the Secretariat will present a proposal for SEA policy at the next board meeting in October. So if the board approves the SEA policy, the Secretariat will propose to prepare guidelines to support the implementation of SEA policy and update other relevant policies of the fund as per the board decisions. So this concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer to any questions that you may have later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Young, for updating on the status of the work for the environmental social policy and the SEA policy work as well. I wonder if I could turn to Martina, just check in with you if you are in a place where you are ready to present on the policy for project and program implementation delays.
Yes, thank you, Rob. I hope you can hear me well, loud and clear. And good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Please, can you confirm, Rob, if I should share my screen or the slides will be projected from your end?
I think it will, if you could share from your end, just so we could work around the laptop issue we're having for the other slides, that would be great. And so thank you and welcome.
Okay, I hope you can see the screen. So
Yes,
in this brief presentation, I will provide an update with regards to the implementation of the decision B44/44, which approved amendments to the post-approval policies. You can see the decision here on the screen. The Adaptation Fund Board decided to approve the Adaptation Fund policy on project post-approval requests for changes and the related annexes, including also the templates, and also to approve the Adaptation Fund amended policy for project program delays, which was contained in Annex A of the document, and also related templates, and also to request the Secretariat to implement the action plan for the implementation of the amendments to the policies. So let's see a little bit more in detail what this entails. Well, first of all, the main revision that is introduced with these policies is distinguish between what is a minor change request from a major change request. A minor change, as defined from the policy, is a change that does not significantly alter the project scope, nor the project budget or expected outcomes, objectives, or also the risk profile of the project. Whereas the major change is a substantive change that can potentially significantly alter the project risk profile, but also the scope, the budget, and expected outcomes and the objectives. So as you can see from this infographic, the process for submitting a request for change to the Secretariat has not changed. So the implementing entity shall make a formal request to the Secretariat by submitting the relevant documents as specified in the amended policies. The Secretariat will undertake a revision of the submitted documents, and when it is ready for clearance from the Secretariat or approval by the board, it will be further processed. In case it's going to be falling under a minor request, it will be approved through a Secretariat clearance, unless we talk about a minor request, which is a disbursement schedule request, which also implies an amendment to the legal agreement. Whereas we assume that all the major or material requests, they will be approved by the board through a standard process that we have in place already, which is the intersessional approval process that undergoes a 2-week non-objection approval, or through regular sessions of the board. All the major or material requests, they imply an amendment of the legal agreement, and all these approvals and clearances of the request for project change, they will be published on the Adaptation Fund website to ensure transparency of our operations. Now, let's see more specifically what are these new revisions, what are the new elements included in the new policies. So as you can see here, there is a distinct level of clearance or approval authority, and the Secretariat will be clearing now all the so-called minor requests for change. Here you can see them listed. They, for example, refer to requests for revising the project or program results framework, which can be considered minor. What does it mean minor? Again, they don't really alter the project risk profile, nor their scope is altered. The project budget reallocation, which are not material, what does it mean? That they are less than 20% of the total project cost at output level, cumulatively speaking. Also, minor changes to implementation arrangements. What does it mean? It means, for example, when we have a situation whereby we still have the same executing entity, but we want to add executing partners on the ground that can support and complement the action of the executing entities, and those they don't receive funding directly from the implementing entity. Below minor requests, also we have the request for direct project and program services, which may relate, for instance, to situation where the executing entity needs the support from the implementing entity for procurement services, for example, or payment related services. We have also revisions to project disbursement schedule. What does it mean? Is those situations whereby implementing entity, they want to revise the disbursement schedule to accelerate project implementation, which might be facing delays. Or for example, we need to have a front load of funding disbursed because the project implementation plan has changed. And also revision to project target sites, right, which are minor and, for example, are within the approved project target area. Whereas the major decisions, major requests for revisions, they can be revision to the project results framework, which can alter substantially the project risk profile or the project scope, but also project budget reallocation, which are considered material and are equal or more than 20% of the total project cost. Changes to project sites, but in this case requiring an updated environmental and social risk screening. So those sites, new sites that fall outside of the approved project location. And also the major changes to implementation arrangements, when, for example, it becomes evident that the executing entity can no longer execute the project and we need to bring on new executing entities. So for this type of request, if it's minor, the process to be followed is, as I was mentioning before, that the implementing entity needs to submit the relevant documents to the Secretariat as specified in the policy. There is going to be a revision undertaken by us, and then finally the Secretariat will inform officially the implementing entity on whether this request for change has been cleared through a letter officializing this clearance. For what it concerns the type of changes that needs to be approved by the board, the process really is invaried, does not change, and the board will approve these requests for changes either during the intersessional period or during the regular board meetings. Now, let's see more in detail what are the revisions brought up by the policy for project and program delays, the revised one. So the Secretariat will now, from now on, approve all the project inception delays up to 12 months. 12 months that are starting after the 6-month buffer period that is essentially considered. The project should start within 6 months after they receive the first cash transfer. If the project cannot start within these 6 months, they have an additional 12 months to start. And all these postponement of project inceptions, they are cleared by the Secretariat, so up to a total of 18 months. Then delays related to submission of project performance reports, as it is the process now, they are cleared by us. And finally, this is a revision request for no cost extension of project completion date, which cumulatively speaking are up to 18 months. Now they are going to be cleared by the Secretariat. For what it concerns board clearance, they will just now clear inception delays of more than 12 months, including, of course, any other delays, even though they are minor, but can lead to a project major change. So again, what does it mean? That could alter significantly the risk profile or the scope of the project. And then also inception delays beyond 18 months, which are just granted by the board in exceptional cases. Finally, the board will also approve no cost extension of project completion dates, which are beyond, cumulatively speaking, 18 months. Again, I'm not going through the process again because it's the same as displayed in the previous slide. And finally, how the Secretariat is planning to put in place and to socialize all these policy revisions. We have different actions that we are planning to put in place between essentially May and the end of this calendar year that relate to capacity building sessions and webinars. This is, of course, one of the first series, but we are planning to have more comprehensive capacity building sessions. For example, one focus for national implementing entities. Also, we will have internal capacity building sessions for the Secretariat. Also, we are planning to socialize the standardized templates for all these project post-approval requests for change via email and also by uploading them on the website. The Secretariat will be also working on implementing an online submission process. So as many of you are familiarized already for the project performance report, we have an online submission process. We would also like to have an online submission process whereby implementing entities can access an online portal and submit all these requests online. And we will also create a single comprehensive one-stop guidance document to help stakeholders understand better the scope and implication of these policy changes. And there will be also, as it is now, an open communication channel with the Secretariat. So if any implementing entities, they have any doubts, of course, feel free to reach out to the team, which is led by Neha Sharma and my colleague Justice, which I see in the room there, and myself. Thank you so much, and I stand ready to respond to any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Martina, for your presentation and the update on this decision by the board. We have one last brief update on the agenda to provide a brief update on the work to date on the strategic results framework. This was also an item that was tabled at the 44th board meeting, but like some of the other items, the board was not able to get to discussion on this item. So I'm not sure if Neha's online, but if she is, I would like to invite her to come in and make a brief presentation on this. I don't see her, so perhaps if she's not on, maybe we will skip over this one, and with the remaining roughly 30 minutes for the webinar, we could open it up to questions, comments from participants. So let me just then say thank you to all the presenters for moving briefly through the board's decisions on these key items, and for all the comments that were provided. I'd like to now open this up and invite participants who are listening in, our colleagues and implementing entity partners. Any comments that you might have, any questions, anything in any of the presentations that you would like to come back to. I can see the chat function, so if that's helpful and you want to throw a question into chat, that would be great. And let me see if I can configure the screen in front of me to see a little bit more participants. Don't see any hands up yet. I'm just scrolling down. I don't see any raised hands at this point. I see a hand. Yes, Isuduna, please. Yes, while waiting for Isuduna to come in, I see, just to respond to Laure's question, yes, this whole webinar is being recorded, and as well, we're happy to share the presentations as a follow-up. I see a question in the chat directed at a couple questions coming in. One on a question on the reaccreditation process by the accreditation panel. And then another question from a colleague from WFP on minor changes below the 10% of the budget. Does it still require prior approval? Could I first release the question on, or ask for a response on the question of reaccreditation, and then ask someone to speak to the minor changes below 10%, and then we'll pick up other questions.
Yes, Rob, I will take the question.
Please.
By Fortuné. With regard to the type of application that we receive for the reaccreditation, these are all entities after 5 years. So a year before, we have to submit their request of reaccreditation. So at any point in time, essentially, the panel deals with all the applications that at that point needs to be reassessed in terms of to reach their reaccreditation. So this is very clear in the reaccreditation policy and procedure that will also has established clear deadline and time for presenting the application, submitting the application in the workflow, which is the accreditation system. And once an entity gets into the reaccreditation status, then to essentially give reaccreditation within a specific time period. Thank you.
Yes, and I see Fortuné also is asking about and I'm sorry, Sylvia, if you may have addressed this, but just what is what about the status of reaccreditation applications currently under review? If you respond to that, thank you, but sorry, I just want to make sure.
Yes, with regard to the FNEC reaccreditation, if this is what Fortuné you are looking for in terms of response, we will take this bilateral in a separate conversation, as all the applications and the reaccreditation and accreditations are confidential.
Great, thank you. Question on minor changes below 10% of the budget. Not sure, Martina or
Yes, Rob, I can take the question. Thank you so much, Aya from the WFP, for raising this question. So as it was in the past, all the requests for budget reallocation at output level, which are not material, therefore are less than 20%, they will be cleared by the Secretariat. A way is to report, of course, on the budget variance in the annual performance report, but we strongly advise the implementing entity always to submit to us along the PPR a revised budget at output level, which needs to be presented in comparison to the original budget, including the output level budget variance, and these will determine and will also help us to determine whether the change is minor or is material. If it's minor, it will be clear by the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I want to ask Young if you wanted to speak to the question from Swati, Section 7 of the amendment of the legal agreement for reporting. I can say yes, it will apply to new agreements, the ones that were approved recently. But Young, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a bit more.
I think thanks, Rob. As Rob explained, that it applies to new funding legal agreements. But if you have any further questions, then feel free to reach us. Thank you. And I see also the question regarding the ESB draft, the draft of the updated ESB, and the draft of the ESB policy is available on the website, and I can share the link on the chat box. Thank you.
Great. I do see a hand up from Abdul Wadud. May I invite you to come in, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think my question relates to the capping for regional projects. So I was just seeking guidance on if you have submitted a pre-concept note for a regional project based on the old capping of 14 million. What is the guidelines relating to if you're moving to the concept stage, kind of increasing the budget to the new cap, say 30 million? Is that clear?
Thank you. I was just checking with a colleague here. That question, I'm sorry. Oh, Alyssa, sorry, I see Alyssa flagging with her hand up. So Alyssa, if you want to come in and respond to that, if that's what you're raising your hand for, welcome you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Rob, and good morning, everyone. To your question, if at all you would like to increase the size of the project, you're more than welcome to do so. Just bear in mind that when increasing the size and if the scope of the project increases, for example, you want to now target new target areas, potentially the beneficiaries might increase. For these purposes, you need to make sure that in line with the increased size and the increased scope of the project, you undertake the necessary requirements, because these might require some additional questions in the review pertaining to the increased scope. But you're more than welcome to do so, to revise the budget based on the new caps. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And there is actually a related question as a follow-up to Martina's response. I'm not sure if this would go to Martina or actually back to you, Alyssa, on the question in the chat from Aya on whether the 40 million applies to all countries, only to the ones which were increased to 20 million previously. I know some of these questions will be taken up in tomorrow's session as well. So Alyssa, just feel free to steer those questions in that direction if you wish.
Yes, very, very quickly, Rob, thanks for that question in the chat. The 40 million applies to all countries, so not only those that have accessed 10 million or 20 million. But we can have further discussions on this tomorrow.
Great, thank you for that. I saw Andrew's Machora's hand go up. Did you want to come in, Andrew?
Thank you so much. My name is Andrew from Kenya. So my question is actually related to the discussions that we've just had about the country allocation. And we've just been recently accredited to the Adaptation Fund. And at the moment, we have a project that has been submitted from Kenya, which is really like taking a significant amount of the country allocation. And looking at the time that we will have to wait until the next replenishment, and also taking into consideration the expiry of our accreditation period. So is it possible to, let's say, rationalize the budget so that at least we have two projects from Kenya for the resources that the country has been allocated? Thank you.
Yes, I propose, Andrew, that we take this discussion bilaterally. But as I was mentioning, that if you want to revise the budget, you're welcome to do so. There are implications for this, but you are welcome to do so. But let's discuss this bilaterally, Andrew. We can set up a meeting with our programming colleagues.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. So I will reach out for a meeting.
Great, thank you. Just scanning again for any raised hands, any new hands. Sylvia, yes, please.
Thank you, Andrew, and again for FINEC. I just want to make sure, Andrew, because you just mentioned the reaccreditation, and going back to the question before, I just want to make sure that is clearly understood that there is no changes currently with regard to the reaccreditation process. What was approved at the board is that we will go back to the board with an analysis, but currently there is no change and in the normal reaccreditation process.
Great, thank you for that. Not seeing any additional hands raised or new comments or questions in the chat box. Just doing a quick scan. Yeah, I'm not seeing any new. So welcome additional questions or through raised hand or through comments, but also just to let everyone know that tomorrow the session will focus more specifically on projects and some of the access to resource questions and decisions that the board made. Yes, Swati, thanks for your question in the chat. That's right. The changes in for existing projects. That's a good question. Let's come back to you on this. I think we're still having an internal discussion on this, but let me come back to you on that question about whether it applies for existing projects. Other questions, other comments? If not, I'd just like to thank everybody for attending. Thank you to all presenters. Thank you especially to Miko and Sylvia, who connected remotely and at a late hour while on mission. We appreciate that. And thanks everybody for comments and questions. We'll share the recording for this webinar as well as the PowerPoints, and look forward to seeing those who can make it at tomorrow's follow-up session. So thank you very much. Wish everybody a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye, and thank you.
And thank you.